This is the second edition of our Descendants of Secondary Endosymbiosis. So we're going to look at the brown algal life cycle by looking at Fucus, and then we'll look at Diatoms. Here is a Fucus thallus. So this is one where we don't really have much of a stipe, but we can see it has this dichotomous branching, where it branches in equal sections every time it branches. It's part of how you can help recognize Fucus when you go to the beach. And then it will end in these swollen, kind of heart-shaped receptacles. So we're going to draw the Fucus life cycle. Put meiosis over here. Fertilization over here. Oop. I've left myself a little more room on bottom because it's a diplontic life cycle, so most of it's going to be haploid. So we will start with our zygote. This zygote is going to grow by mitosis into a diploid thallus, and that has dichotomous branching and a little holdfast. At the end of each of these branches is a little swollen heart-shaped receptacle. So we are going to zoom in. This is a diploid thallus. On this receptacle. And if you were to see kind of what that looked like, it would have all of these little dots on it. Each of those dots is a bump, and that bump is the top of a structure that's buried within that receptacle. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a cross section through this receptacle. And look inside it. So here's our little bump. This is the ostiole, the hole that forms at the top. And this round kind of cave structure within the receptacle is called a conceptacle. And the conceptacle has two things inside of it. And it depends on the species of Fucus. Sometimes you'll have both male and female reproductive parts within the same conceptacle. Sometimes they'll be separated out. So here we're going to draw them within the same structure. So we will have these kind of bushy, branchy looking structures, as well as these larger kind of globose structures. And the bushy branching structures are antheridia, and the larger globose structures are oogonia, just like we saw in saprolegnia, or I guess it's an oogonium since it's singular. So we have that oogonium, and that is going to make the egg by mitosis, and the antheridia is going to make sperm by mitosis. No, not mitosis, meiosis, sorry. So the antheridia undergo meiosis, and the oogonia undergo meiosis. And our products of that are the egg and the sperm. So there's our egg inside of the oogonium. That is going to get fertilized by these free floating swimming sperm that have the heterocont flagellum. Collectively, we would call these gametes because they're haploid and they have to fuse. And when they do, whoosh, fertilization. So diatoms are our other group of photosynthetic heteroconts. Their body plan is unicellular. Environment is anywhere you can find water. on tree bark, grass, in the ocean, in ponds, anywhere. Photosynthetic pigments, they have chlorophyll A, chlorophyll C, and fucoxanthin, just like our brown algae. Their storage carbohydrate is chrysolaminarin, so that's a little bit different. Brown algae had laminarin, so I just think chryso like crystalline, even though it's probably meaning that it's orange or something. But the chryso for me I think of as crystalline because diatoms have these glassy cell walls, so they have a frustule, which is like a two-valved shell-like structure made of silica. And these can be incredibly intricate and beautiful, and I'm very excited for you to see them in lab. Definitely watch the videos that I posted. They have an intricate system of pores on them that is evolved to capture sunlight, and so we are starting to design our photovoltaics, our solar panels, to mimic those porous patterns to better capture sunlight. Their life cycle, they're asexual by binary fission. And what they do is, since they're made of those two valves of the frustule, those two valves just split in half, and there's a bigger valve and a smaller valve that fits inside it. And so they split in half, and then each of those valves then grows a new valve within it. And so what happens is, as they do that over and over and over again, they get progressively smaller. And so at some point, once they get too small in physical size, there's some signal that works somehow, I don't know, to do sexual reproduction. And so when they do sexual reproduction, they make something called an oxospore. Which is a huge structure that then, when it divides, kind of resets the size for that population. But that process happens with a diplontic life cycle. Here's your review slide for later. Diatoms are hugely important to people. They are a large component of phytoplankton, so free-floating organisms in the ocean or other water sources that are floating around photosynthesizing. That photosynthesis is producing maybe half the oxygen that we breathe here terrestrially, as well as removing large amounts of CO2 from the atmosphere. Those phytoplankton are the base of the food web for marine ecosystems, and we also have a lot of diatoms on land, so those would be some food source for other organisms. In addition to that, oxygen, CO2 mediation, and creating food, they are used for a wide variety of sources. So, we do our biomimicry where we're trying to figure out how to capture sunlight better for solar panels, but they are also used in toothpaste because they're little tiny pieces of glass basically, so it's a good abrasive. They're a huge component of glass because as their bodies fall down to the bottom of the ocean, they put that silica into the ocean sediments or into sand that we then use to make glass. They are used in soundproofing, insulation, pest control, so people will sprinkle diatomaceous earth in their gardens because it's like little sharp shards that if you are a slug trying to crawl across, it might cut you up. So a diverse use base for our diatoms. Here they are. Look how beautiful they are. I'm very excited for you to see them in lab. And so on the bottom right, you can see their kind of system of pores, and so they'll have maybe 3 different layers, all with a different arrangement of pores that help capture sunlight to be most efficient.